If you remember back in June, the PlayStation Studios head Hermen Hulst said there are over 25 games in development across all of PS Studios, nearly half of which being a new IP. And it's been almost a year since we last did a portfolio breakdown on all of PS Studios, and also since then we now know that for the PS Studios umbrella, they're including first and second party games moving forward. That's how they're going to start marketing that. So let's take a look at all of Sony's developers, confirmed games, rumored games, what we think they're doing, breaking down job descriptions, all that good stuff. The same for Sony's growing list of newly formed partnered developers. Here's everything that you need to know about PlayStation Studios. Starting off with Santa Monica Studio, we know they're toiling away on the next God of War, which currently has no proper trailer or official title, but we do know it was recently confirmed for PS4 and PS5, delayed to 2022. We should be seeing this game relatively soon, but something we might be waiting even longer for is another unannounced project that Sony Santa Monica has confirmed they're hiring for, and they're seeking to fill a lot of big positions like art director, senior animation programmer, lead tools programmer, senior engine programmer, senior character concept artist. And for that position, actually, there's some pretty interesting responsibilities and requirements in there that are listed, like, for example, and I quote, develop and maintain strong creative and collaborative partnerships across subject areas to help further develop the in-game characters, visual language, and rule sets for fantasy-based worlds. Strong design skills with the ability to render realistic, believable fantasy-based characters, creatures, and props using contemporary industry-standard tools and techniques. We know Santa Monica has had a history of playing around with the idea of something more sci-fi-esque, and just off the wording alone, it's neutral enough to not be a dead giveaway. It could be similar to God of War fantasy or sci-fi fantasy. Either way, we'll have a lot of waiting to do before we see what this project actually is. Next up is Naughty Dog, and we know that they're working on The Last of Us Factions. There's been some leaked images and clips, but they're still hiring for this as well. Obviously, the scope of this project has become much larger, as job listings are calling this the company's first standalone multiplayer game. We also have a rumor for The Last of Us remake on PS5, coming from Jason Schreier's report for Bloomberg regarding the Visual Arts Service Group and Bend Studio. This is the secret project that we first learned about back in 2018 when we thought it was some sort of separate Uncharted spin-off or possibly a brand new IP entirely, but it seems like this is probably going to be a remake for The Last of Us on PlayStation 5. Then we have the next major release, which is completely unknown, and it may sound like we're talking about this way too soon or too far ahead of time, because obviously Naughty Dog will at some point release a game that's not a remake or completely multiplayer focused, but the current theory floating around is that the multiplayer project is nearing the final stages, and the remake is more of a straightforward project that staff can work on while they start the early planning or pre-production phase for the next big major release that's currently ongoing. And that's really a phase where you don't need a massive crew to start off, so chances are that might be happening right now, but that project will be, understandably, years away. Polphony Digital. This team, for the most part, is going to be an open and shut case. We're expecting Gran Turismo 7 out of them. Our recent update here is that the game was delayed to 2022 due to COVID-related production challenges, and we also learned the game will release on PS4 as well as PS5, which this was initially surprising given the game was advertised as a PS5 exclusive at first, and allegedly the decision to make a PS4 version was made very recently, as reported by Andy Robinson of Video Games Chronicle. One thing we can say is that for a Gran Turismo game, this should be coming sooner rather than later, something that became troubling for the franchise starting in the PS3 lifecycle, but that platform is well behind them now at this point, and GT Sport is doing very well, so this game should be on track for some time next year. Housemarque. Developer Housemarque recently joined PlayStation Studios officially after shipping Returnal on PlayStation 5, so this one would be too early to say their next game is a part of this 25 plus number that Hermen Hulst threw out. If anything, Housemarque is still knee-deep in Returnal post-support, like a possible saving feature that players have been heavily requesting, or possibly DLC for the game, which Housemarque has done for a lot of their titles in the past. What we can expect, though, now that Housemarque is under the PS Studios umbrella, and they've said this much pretty directly, is more investment for them to continue larger budget, gameplay-heavy titles. That, and they want to try more storytelling in their games, so whatever we get years later will likely look something like that. Insomniac Games has done absolutely phenomenal work on PS5 so far. Within the first 7 months of the console, they've shipped Spider-Man Miles Morales, Spider-Man Remastered, and Ratchet & Clank Ripped Apart, with tons of post-launch support too. So that unfortunately means we don't have a whole lot to discuss right now for their next game, except they've recently put up a number of job listings for a new multiplayer project, and based on the positions that they're looking for, and, well, all the games they've just released, this is probably going to be very far away. But it should be a safe bet that we do have a full-scale Spider-Man sequel coming, and then this multiplayer project which is in its infancy. The multiplayer project, we do know, there is a bullet point in the job description for the creative director which reads, and I quote here, "Works closely with project management, approves and monitors direction for brand extensions like movies, books, graphic novels, web, DLC, and mobile games, ensures consistency across the brand's mythology and universe." So this multiplayer project might be like Spider-Man on an existing IP that Insomniac has to abide to in certain respects. Either it's a different existing IP being a separate game, or perhaps a multiplayer tie-in to the next Spider-Man. But really, this is all just speculation at that point. Sucker Punch Productions. For this studio, we can expect Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut coming very soon, August 20th for PS4 and PS5, so based on the upload date of this video, that's right around the corner. And since the launch of Ghost of Tsushima last year, we've had the Legends Online mode release, numerous patches, and now a new island to explore with the Iki Island expansion in the Director's Cut. Job listings right now imply they're still looking for multiplayer talent and writers that have success in telling impactful, character-driven stories in an open-world game. Not entirely surprising, but that's all we have to go on right now. PixelOpus, Sony's smallest studio, last shipped Concrete Genie on PS4 in 2019, and it's looking like they're going to handle a bigger project for PlayStation 5. In June, they put up a job listing for a principal graphics programmer that reads, and I quote, "We are seeking a principal graphics programmer to contribute to our development process as we tackle exciting innovation and rendering opportunities through a collaboration with Sony Pictures Animation. This position specializes in programming that centers around the graphics functionality of the PlayStation 5 and Unreal 5 game engine, but with our small team, responsibilities will be diverse. Judging from the artistic approach of their last two games, we could be getting something really special if Sony Pictures Animation is involved, and with Unreal 5 being the engine, we already know there's immense possibilities here. This is one you're definitely going to want to keep your eyes on." San Diego Studio. This was the first year that the San Diego team released MLB on Xbox consoles as part of the new deal with the Major League Baseball Association. So while we can always count on a new MLB game releasing every single year, we now know for the foreseeable future these games will be available on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series S and X consoles. Outside of that, there's not much else we can say. There's no job listings referencing anything outside of MLB, which, mind you, San Diego has worked on other various projects with different teams, but they haven't done this since 2017. And there was a prior report of a job for a game test analyst open world, but that's more of a generalized listing for Worldwide Studios QA department, so for right now at least we don't really have much, and we have to leave it there. Media Molecule, ongoing support for Dreams is still in full effect. Actually, right now, DreamsCom 2021 is taking place inside the game, where the community is showcasing some truly incredible stuff, and for Media Molecule specifically, they've recently announced 3 brand new projects within Dreams: Mega Penguin Rehatched, where Media Molecule will make the first few levels, and then the community can finish the rest, and then the studio also announced Ancient Dangers, A Bat's Tale, and Tren, 2 completely original titles built within Dreams. The developer is still highly focused on supporting Dreams by adding new content, new assets, creator features, and more. Guerrilla Games. Unfortunately, it does look like their next title, Horizon Forbidden West, is getting pushed into 2022, but this isn't really at all surprising given the unclear timeline from PlayStation and the production challenges every studio has been facing lately, so Forbidden West is what we're looking at in the short term. Long term, we do know Guerrilla has moved into their new office space and has been on a hiring spree for the last 2 years, aiming to reach around 400 employees, which currently they're at around 360, to handle 2 projects at the same time. The other game that hasn't been announced yet is presumably a new multiplayer title. There's been a handful of job listings and high-profile multiplayer talent hired since 2018, and so far it's been pretty quiet on this project. Not a whole lot has come out about it, but as far as we can see, it is still in active development. Team Asobi. Despite the fact that this developer has been a thing since 2012 inside Japan Studio, Sony recently refocused their efforts in Japan strictly to Team Asobi as a public-facing developer of PlayStation Studios. Essentially, Japan Studio as we know it is gone, though there are still positions for external development, which is the bulk of what Japan Studio was doing prior to all the employee contracts not being renewed for what was in-house original development. Either way, Team Asobi is working on something new after releasing Astro's Playroom for all PS5 consoles, and all we have right now is a recent job listing confirming to us that yes, it is still a 3D action game like Astro. That doesn't mean it'll be Astro, but it might be a safe bet to think that we will see more of him, whether it's a full-scale 3D adventure or perhaps a VR title for Sony's next-gen headset is anyone's guess. Next up is Bend Studio. As part of the recent Bloomberg report we mentioned earlier with The Last of Us Remake, we also found out that Bend had initially pitched Days Gone 2, which Sony turned down. And at one point, Bend was lending a lot of development support to Naughty Dog, and they were at some point working on their own spin-off Uncharted, up until they eventually asked to do their own game, and that was granted. That's at least what we know behind the scenes. Officially, though, we do have confirmation that Bend is indeed working on a new game that will be a completely original IP based on their deep open-world systems that they developed with Days Gone. If the initial report was accurate, then it's sounding like this is something that only recently got off the ground, so it could be a few years before we even have a clue as to what this game will turn out to be. London Studio, well known in recent years for VR development with PSVR, it seems right now they might have moved on from that. It was only a short while ago that all the VR references have been removed from their site and job listings, and right now for those job listings they're asking for experience in the AAA space for a next-gen new IP. Considering Sony's new VR headset isn't really much of a secret, the company has openly confirmed that it is coming, one could argue that there's no reason for them to hide VR development in the first place if that is what they were doing. So perhaps they moved on from that and are going back to the more traditional 2D space on PS5. And when you look at their portfolio of VR content, but also largely party-oriented games like SingStar and camera titles, it would be refreshing to see them try something more grounded like The Getaway again. Bluepoint Games. So, technically speaking, this hasn't been confirmed just yet, but as part of the Housemarque acquisition announcement, we saw the PlayStation Japan Twitter account mistakenly release a very purposeful image with Bluepoint's logo, as if they were the ones being acquired, and it would be even more difficult to say this isn't happening when the lineup of the IP in the background was made to accommodate the announcement after Housemarque, with a sliver cut out to add the Demon's Souls remake after the fact. So as a long-standing partner developer, they'll soon be under the PS Studios umbrella in all likelihood, and having said all that, Bluepoint Games is a team well known for their remaster, remake, and port work, having recently released the Demon's Souls remake on PS5. It'll be quite a bit until we see what's next out of them, but prior to the Demon's Souls remake being announced, they've teased a handful of different IP, and lately there's been a lot of speculation as to what the next project is, but really there's just nothing solid to go on right now. There's nothing revealing about their site or their job listings. Moving on to Sony's partner studios, let's talk about Firewalk Studios. This is a developer recently formed in 2018 by staff that previously worked on well-known IP like Destiny, Apex Legends, BioShock Infinite, and Mass Effect. And for their new game, it's going to be a completely original multiplayer title, partnering with PlayStation Studios. Out of all the recent partnerships Sony has announced, this one seems to be the furthest along, having not only started development years ago, but apparently Herman Hulst has tried a playable build of it and really liked it. So we might not have a whole lot of waiting to do to see what this is. Next up is Haven Studios. PlayStation has signed on a brand new Montreal-based developer spearheaded by Jade Raymond, formerly of EA, Ubisoft, and most recently Google Stadia. Back when this partnership was announced, there was very little info to go on other than this was going to be a new IP, but now we've had a number of job listings pop up that are seeking those experience in multiplayer and also live service-based games. So in all likelihood, that's what this is going to be. But we might have some serious waiting ahead of us as this team is only just getting off the ground this year. And finally, we have Deviation Games. This is a brand new development studio that was announced during Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest. Founded in November 2019 by former Call of Duty developers Dave Anthony and Jason Blundell, they wanted to break away from an established franchise like Call of Duty and try something entirely different. They've signed on with PlayStation Studios to get this game off the ground, and all we know right now is that it's a brand new, console-exclusive IP. Judging from the background of the founders, we might be looking at yet another multiplayer project. I wouldn't call it a surefire expectation, but it does seem to be a strong possibility. Moving on to some existing partnerships, we have Lucid Games. Right now, Lucid has been contracted for Destruction All-Stars, which launched earlier this year, and right now the game is in Season 1 called Hot Shots, with gradual updates to improve the gameplay experience and player unlocks. At a minimum, we're expecting a year of support here, so this should be ongoing until early 2022. Kojima Productions. Come September 24th, we'll have Death Stranding Director's Cut, which will include a lot of new visual enhancements, DualSense features, and also a slew of new content as well. After this game ships, we've got no indication of anything else coming when it comes to PS Studios. The current rumor surrounding Kojima Productions is a cloud-related project with Microsoft, so until we have a public reveal of what Kojima's been up to, we can't confidently say there's anything else in the pipeline beyond Death Stranding for PlayStation Studios. Sumo Digital, responsible for Sackboy Big Adventure on PS5. There's been some post-launch support there with patches, new costumes, and a set of tournaments, but it's unclear if Sumo has had total involvement in supporting the game at this point. Oftentimes we see these smaller duties handed over to XDev, and also Sumo has recently accepted a bid from Tencent to be acquired. Not to say that that would interfere with any Sony partnership, as Tencent isn't a platform holder, but there's not really a whole lot else that can be said regarding Sumo. Anyway, for right now, that's everything that we know about the PlayStation Studios lineup. Expectedly, there are a lot of unknowns, which is exciting to hear about for the PS5 lifecycle. There's probably a lot more left-field announcements that are just waiting to be revealed, and when the time comes, we'll talk about them. For those wanting more insight into rumored projects outside of PS Studios that may include some Sony involvement, we covered that back in June, so I'll leave that link down below for those interested. And as a reminder, things like XDev, the Malaysia team, Visual Art Service Group, even Nixxes Software, these are all considered support teams that will not be working on their own original games, though one could argue Nixxes will act in the same way as Bluepoint, in which case we can expect an Uncharted PC port at some point, assuming Nixxes is indeed working on that, and likely many other PC ports over time. But for now, that's all of Sony's lineup that we know about under the PlayStation Studios branding. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you haven't yet, please subscribe for the best PlayStation news, reviews, and updates that are here on YouTube. You can also follow me on Twitter at Mystic Ryan, and that is it. I will see you all in my next video. You take it easy.